you're the founder of Mena Advocacy, which you guys are doing really, really amazing things for people in TV and film and online platforms and diversity. So for those who don't know about it, can you talk to us about what it is and what you do and, what changes you're seeing?
Sure. I launched an organization, a coalition of performers really a few years ago, because here, when diversity became incredibly important and we were finally seeing a little bit of parity for performers of color getting more opportunities, people that were Middle Eastern, North African, that had that appearance were actually counted out because we were counted as white. Mm-hmm. So because we were counted as white in hiring practices, we actually couldn't fill those normal diversity roles.
Right.
And so when they needed the stereotype, when they needed the terrorist, when they needed a woman in a hijab, when they needed somebody in a different language, those were the only jobs we were getting. When diversity became important, it actually worked against us. And there was nobody there for performers on screen. We just didn't have an organization. There's a lot of people focused on the Muslim story, and they really focus on the writing and the narrative of the Muslim story. They're not actually focused on the actors that play those parts. And I realized that I had a little bit of an in, just as being someone in the business for as long as I've been in the business. And I've always been a bit of a teaching moment in different rooms because I am from Afghanistan, and most people have never met anybody from Afghanistan. And most people go, wait a minute, you're from Afghanistan. What does that mean? Like, what do you think of the Taliban? What do you think of terrorism? What do you think of, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah. And there's other things.
Yeah. Geopolitics, guys. Luckily, I grew up in Washington, D.C., so I can have these conversations. But I knew that I could utilize my contacts to figure out what was going on. And I did just that. And when I realized that we weren't counted as a diversity group, I tried to figure out how we could fix that. And it took me about 2 years, but I worked hand in hand with the Screen Actors Guild and with the producers and another actor friend of mine, Asaf Cohen. And I really lobbied our union. And we ended up adding a new diversity category in Hollywood, Mena, which is Middle Eastern North African. And I found that through studying what was going on at the census for 2020, which we didn't get the Mena category, but it was a potential new category. And so I built in the first new casting category in Hollywood in 37 years. Wow. So that means that we now have our own box to check. So performers that are Middle Eastern and North African can again be seen for roles that are considered diverse. So the roles that we used to get, which would be like the best friend or like the tech person or the doctor, we can now actually fill. We couldn't get those roles anymore. We were literally just going to have to settle to play the stereotype. Wow. So with that, having the new category, there comes a lot of work. Yeah. And that means diversity trainings. That means teaching people what Middle Eastern North African is. That means going and talking to all the casting directors, holding town halls for performers of Middle Eastern North African background and South Asian. I include South Asian performers in that, even though they're protected in the Asian space. They fall under the Asian category, but still our group tries to unify because we all kind of play the same roles. And so it's been a labor of love, and it seems like the work is never ending. It's such a new group, and I want to continue to honor the forward movement that we've had, which is progressing into seeing more heroes from this part of the world. Mm-hmm. You have your handful, one or two, but just like they say, Jennifer Lopez doesn't mean that there's an influx of Latin actors in Hollywood. One doesn't mean that it's okay. You know what I mean? You have to just have like what the world looks like around you, and not just the world, the United States, but the world at large, because really television and film is a global market. It's not just one region. They make TV shows and they go across the globe. So it's been incredibly rewarding, and I love it so much, but it's a lot of work. So just introducing the category, introducing our group to people, creating more opportunities for Middle East and North African performers, and educating studios and producers and networks and casting directors on how to better portray us. So it's really about fighting for the advancement of our visibility on screen.
This is so amazing.
Wow, yeah.
Let's say hooray to girl power, boss power. You just broke it down. Anything that we can do to help support what you're doing, please let us know. This is an amazing stand that you took, and we appreciate you as a woman, as a in diversity, everything. We appreciate you for doing something like that.
Thank you so much. It had to be.
No, go ahead.
No, I just said it. It was something that had to be done, and I was in a unique position, and I continue in a unique position because people can watch TV and say, I don't feel represented, you know, and they can have their ideas and they can critique and they can criticize and say, you know, whatever, but I'm actually living it. I'm fighting for the jobs and I'm getting the jobs. And then I'm adjusting, like on We Broke Up, she was Rada. And then when they hired me, the director called me right away and said, well, how do we make her name more reflective of where you're from? So then she became Roya. So we like pitched her on some names, like on Good Trouble. When I was cast, I was hired as Kendra James. But when I was hired, we adjusted the name to Kendra Zahir. And so doing kind of little things like that where a woman of color isn't erased, just as like Jan. Same thing happened on Ballers. When I was hired for Ballers, she was Jan, and then she became Safia. And so kind of creating that texture into the tapestry of television and film then makes, when you hear those names, the Ahmed or the Safias or whatever, not so weird, because I know as a young girl of color, when people responded to my name, I didn't feel proud. I felt embarrassed that my name was so different than everyone else's. And so because I have lived this experience both as a little person, as an adult, and as an actor fighting to shift the roles, I knew some of the things that could really help change these little narratives that are small things, but actually incredibly impactful for communities at large.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I know. I can just like hear how passionate you are, and it's just captivating, like what you're doing, and you can tell how much love you're putting into it. So I really respect that and appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shruti.